We're back. Episode 2, ILS podcast. Mexican knocks to Ricardo Mexicano. And to my right, we got the one and only, the bodacious, but not barbecue, the legendary, but not, I don't know where I'm going with this.
Is bodacious barbecue just a Texan thing?
I think
or
it's
do
like
other states know about
I
bodacious
think it's
barbecue?
I only know about the one in Tyler.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we'll just assume it's a Texas thing, which, I'm mostly from Texas, so it still applies.
Yeah.
Yeah. My name, by the way, hi, hello, is Vero Fuerte, back in full effect, you guys. We got something good for you today, so we're super hyped.
Yeah. So, first things first, before we get into our main segment of this podcast, Veronica, you want to hit them with the good old Latinx birthdays?
Yeah. So Latinx birthdays for this last week, human beings. We have September 16th. Happy birthday to Mark Anthony. That is really the only one that we have actually for this week. So happy birthday, Marky Mark.
Yeah. And, we might be kind of going at a very fast pace right now. And the only reason we're doing that is because we got a very special guest right now that we're going to interview. Actually, as we're recording this, last week we kind of plugged in the interview because we had pre-recorded it. But this time, what? It's no secret.
Why do they need to know all
It's no
of this?
secret.
Oh my gosh, so much excessive information.
This
Are
is
you trying
all.
to give, this is not VH1 behind the scenes, Mexicano.
This is podcast magic. People know this ain't no secret. But anyway, we're doing this right now. We're gonna be recording her as we record this. So I'm gonna toss it over to Veronica. And this is the interview we got with the up-and-coming artist XbValentine. Very dope. Big things coming up for her. So, take it away, Vero.
We came across her in this previous, I guess, Centro Popular Festival here in your local, in local Fort Worth. She is a baddie. She is a sweetheart. I was just finishing telling Mexicano that she is so adorable. I just want to smother her in Tapatio and eat her in the sandwich. And basically my new best friend. So rapper extraordinaire and soon to blow up, XbValentine. Welcome.
What's up? Thank y'all for having me, by the way. And I appreciate all the nice things you had to say. It means a lot.
Yeah. And just so everybody's, know our bases, Ricardo, Veronica.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
We probably should have done the intro before,
Yeah, but just so you know,
Ricardo, Vero.
Yeah, it's fine. Whatever. She called me Mexicano only because that's my last name.
Oh shit, that's dope.
Yeah.
Right, but he's half Salvadorian, so that's where he gets it from.
Yeah.
That's dope.
Yeah.
You got the best of both worlds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. So speaking of names, actually, we were wondering, how did you come up with the name XbValentine?
It's funny. I feel like a lot of people think it's this crazy story, but so my birthday is on Valentine's Day, and my first name is Bianca, and everyone used to call me B, just growing up. So I just put the B and the Valentine together, and for the longest, that's what I was called, just B Valentine without the X. And I have finally changed my Instagram handle. I was trying to change it to B Valentine, but someone else already had it, so I put the X in front, and everyone kept calling me XbValentine. So I was that's not really what I was supposed to be named, but people kept thinking the X was a part of it, so it worked. And then now everyone just refers to me as XB. So
I find that interesting. I really find that interesting, how with social media and everything, how people really latch onto your username. How if you're if you're popping on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, and people meet you in real life, they'll probably it's more than likely they may refer to you as just your Instagram name because that's all they know you by.
Yeah, because they don't know your real name. See?
Yeah.
So we didn't know that your first name was Bianca, so it works. Yeah,
exactly. Did you have any other names before that you kind of were messing around with?
No, I always went by B Valentine, to be honest, and then just XB came a little bit later on. But yeah, it was always those two.
Okay.
Cool. No, but I mean, I get that 100% because even with my Instagram handle Vero Fuerte, even people who don't know how to roll their R's, they'll call me Vero, and it's really, really cute. I'm well, you get effort for trying, so there you go. But you grew up in a small town like us, right? We were just talking about it, Georgetown, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I did.
Yeah, what was that like?
Oh man, it's really different, I think, compared to because I was currently residing in Dallas, so it's a crazy transformation going from a small town to a big city. But the people in Georgetown were definitely I think the best way to put it is they're comfortable. Everyone's kind of used to their day-to-day life and their routines, and I think I've always felt like I was dreamt a little too big for, you know, everyone in my town. Everyone had like, you know, their black and white, you know, what they wanted. And I was always kind of like, oh, I want something that's far out of reach from what's here, you know?
Yeah, something bigger.
Yeah. So it was definitely a challenge, just being surrounded by a lot of, you know, of that comfortability of people just wanting to like, you know, do what they were comfortable with, I guess. And even the music scene, there really wasn't a music scene. There wasn't a lot of people making music out there. Luckily, I made friends at the time who were already like dabbling into recording their own music. And that's kind of how I got introduced to that. And it just really went from there. As far as that, you know, I did enjoy it. And, you know, I had its perks as well. You know, I liked the school I went to, you know, the small town games are always like a little crazier than anything else.
Yeah.
But, you know, it definitely had, like I said, it has its good and its bad. But at the end of the day, you know, I'm always going to put on for my little small town.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's all I can.
Did you, as far as like maybe like early on, because I think you said that you started as like young as 15, right? Like really starting to get it serious as far as like rapping and like making music.
Yes.
As far as that go, being in such close proximity to Austin, were you kind of like making trips, trying to like kind of like put on as far as like, hey, I'm really trying to make it out here. I'm trying to like link up with other artists, other producers, you know, engineers, somebody to record me, something like that. Like, were you making like those trips back and forth between Georgetown and Austin?
Oh yeah, 100%. So I actually ended up meeting this engineer when I was 15. He goes by Christopher Locke. I worked with him for 6-7 years. And I met him at the time. My sister was trying to help me find a studio to record at because I was just recording at home. And she ended up finding this studio called 6th Street Studios in Austin. And he was working there at the time. So I ended up linking up with him. And then from there, like, I just enjoyed working with him a lot. And I was just back and forth. And he was the only engineer I worked with for those 6 years. I maybe worked with 1 or 2 other engineers, but never quite like, you know, it never felt as natural as it did with him. And, you know, I ended up doing a bunch of open mics. I did one, the first place I ever did open mics at was this hookah bar that's no longer there. It got knocked down. It was Forte Hookah Lounge. And I was performing there when I was like 17. I wasn't even allowed to be in there, but they would let me come in there and then I would have to leave right after I perform. And I ended up meeting a good friend of mine that goes by Jello Mari. I met her and that was like, man, that was probably in 2014. And meeting her is what caused me to start, you know, meeting other artists as well who had already been doing a lot in, you know, in the Austin scene. So I started kind of like hanging around with her and meeting all these other artists that kind of, you know, allowed me to network with them. And I started getting other opportunities to perform at other places. And that's how I started going to Scratch House a lot. I started meeting people who were throwing like weekly shows there. And I was just doing shows there. Unfortunately, that venue got closed down during COVID, which was really sad for a lot of people in Austin who've been doing stuff in the music scene. But as far as that, you know, I was definitely doing a lot of open mics, small shows. And then because of Jello, we eventually ended up making a drive out to Dallas. She got me booked for my first show out there. And maybe like the 3rd show I did with her, I ended up meeting the first person that managed me back in 2015. I signed with him. And that's when my trips to Dallas started happening. I was back and forth to Dallas. I started meeting people who were more involved in the music industry as far as just like other artists. In Dallas, I was really meeting people who were part of like working for labels and stuff like that. And that's kind of what led me into like really getting to, you know, putting my feet in there when it came down to like the music industry part of it. So in Austin, it was really just like, you know, I feel like that was like the baby steps, you know, really learning and experiencing everything by like, you know, meeting the engineer and then doing open mics. And then when I moved to Dallas and everything just started happening a little differently there. So I really feel like Dallas is where it's at. A lot of people don't realize.
DFW in general, I feel like most of the country sleeps on DFW, for real.
Oh, 100%. I always tell people in Austin, like, man, y'all need to be taking what y'all are doing here to Dallas.
For sure.
And is that where, so I guess once you were making like those constant trips up to here, to the Dallas area, were you coming out to Fort Worth at that point, or was it just Dallas specifically?
No, it was just Dallas at the time. It wasn't until I signed with Smooth, because you know he's obviously from Fort Worth. So once I signed to him, that's when I was making the trips to Fort Worth.
So that was going to be my question. Like, was it through the constant like back and forth to Dallas that Smooth kind of heard about you around that area?
Yeah, so he says that he's known about me for a minute. To be honest, I've known about Smooth since like I first had signed to the to my prior management. Mm-hmm. They were actually the ones that were like telling me like, oh, like SmoothVega, like you need to be on his radar, which is, you know, crazy because, you know, I would have never thought that he would be managing me. All I knew is I needed to make sure that he knew who
your
I was.
Name. Yeah.
And so it was just, you know, he's someone who I've been hearing about. You know, anyone who lives in DFW knows who he is, knows what he does. And, you know, when you're an upcoming artist, you know how important it is to introduce yourself and always network and, you know, to make sure like, you know, certain people know who you are. So it was really just like me trying to, you know, make sure that he knew who I was. And eventually, you know, he got a hold of what I was doing. At the time, I wasn't really under any management. So he caught me at a good time. He started like really paying attention more to what I was posting on social media. I was definitely more consistent at the time. I was posting a bunch of freestyle videos, and he, you know, ended up like just reaching out and telling me, hey, I want you to do this cover for my Insight on my YouTube channel. And that was the first time I really like linked up with him and talked to him in person. And he was just telling me like, hey, I'm interested in building this like management. I really like thinking about managing my first artist and this and that. And it was just like he just touched on it a little bit at the time. And then eventually he had me coming back more consistently to, you know, do more things for him. And at some point he was like, you know what, like, let's just do it. And we had a lot of, you know, long conversations before we officially, you know, put it on paper. And he definitely presented to me that he was all in the same way that I was. And it's been nothing but like, it's been crazy. It's
been a whirlwind.
Yeah, for sure. He's definitely someone who's like really helping make my dreams come reality. So yeah, I'm just thankful.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you've been featured with like so many unbelievable people, like just in the festival that we went to alone. I mean, Baby Bash, and then you have all those other artists. It's like, I don't know. And I think that from the research that I was doing, I was listening back to a couple of interviews, and this has been going on within a past couple of months, right? Yeah. That's wild.
It's only been 5 months. Yeah, it's crazy to think everything that's happened because I've been doing this for so long, since I was 15. And within this 5 months, I feel like I've already done more than I ever did since I was 15, you know? So it's crazy. He's definitely making a lot happen.
That's what I wanted to go ahead and ask you, is because you said that you started this since you were 15 and now you're 24, right? And so, I mean, like I said, I grew up in a small town too, so I know what it's like to be surrounded by people that want to do things on a different level that you do, not like a lower, not like a higher level, just on a different level, right? And so, did you ever experience any guilt of sorts, or any like feelings of being an outsider, of, you know, living in a place that didn't think the way that you did?
Definitely felt like, I think I just felt super like, yeah, I guess like an outsider, because I always like, even my friends would get kind of annoyed by me because I was always that person that like, they would tell me they wanted to do something. I'd be like, why aren't you doing it? Or like, you know, I've always been real big on like, I don't want to grow up like wondering what if, you know, because I just want to grow up knowing that I at least tried, and, you know, I got to see the outcome regardless of, you know, anything else. So it's definitely just it was a little frustrating because I was definitely like, at some point there were kids, you know, making fun of me because I was like putting myself out there, and I was, you know, the music wasn't at its peak back then, but I was definitely just like, at the time I didn't care for it. I didn't want anything out of it. I was just putting it out because that's what I wanted to do. So, you know, there was just a lot of that. But even then, I think I always took it as like, I'm still doing something a lot of people wish they could. And that was what kept me going. The thought of that, and just knowing that this is something I'm good at. And if I were to stick to it, like only like, I can only see something good come out of it from continuing, you know? I like, just my biggest thing is like, the only way you're going to get there is by not quitting. And that's just like been my mindset about it all. And I've never really let what other people thought about what I wanted affect what I was doing. Because I knew at the end of the day, like, a lot of those people who had something to say back then aren't around now. So that's like, you know, doesn't really matter what they had to think in the beginning. So, and it's crazy because now I get a lot of love from my hometown. Like, It was
That's how it
recently.
happens. It all comes back around, right?
Yeah, it's crazy for sure. I was at a oil. I was getting my oil changed. It's like down the street from this restaurant I used to work at. And when I was just chilling on there, and I was like on the phone with my manager. It was funny because he was on the phone with me, so he heard the whole thing. And some guy, he just comes up. He's like, wait. He's like, you're XB, right? And I started like, well, I just like that because I was in the waiting room. And I was like, yeah. And he just gets excited, walks out, and goes and tells another worker. Another worker had no idea who I was, but it was just crazy to see how excited he was. He comes back. He's like, can I please get a picture with you? And it was just crazy to me because I happened in my hometown, and it was someone I didn't know. And I'm used to, like, you know, you live in a small town, you know everybody. Yeah. So it was definitely crazy for me to like experience that in a place I'm from. So that's definitely crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think that you got that confidence of, you know, just if you love something, you're going to pursue it, you know, like forget what other people think, you know, and it's very hard to have that mentality in a small town because people talk, you know, in fact, people don't shut up most of the time. So do you feel like you got that mentality from growing up with so many brothers y primos? Because you had sisters, right? But they were significantly older than you.
Yeah. So man, honestly, I didn't really have a lot of cousins, and I only had one brother, and he was younger than me. But I was always with my two cousins growing up, and they were super like I wasn't a girl when I was around them. They treated me like I was any other, you know, kid with them. Like, and I think that had a lot to do with like they would tell me things, you know, like they would like when you're young, y'all don't care about each other's feelings. Like we would hurt each other's feelings all the time, and it definitely like teaches you early on like to have thick skin, you know. So not only that, like Hispanic parents be criticizing your every move, you know. So,
oh just man, you don't have to tell me twice. Shit, I grew up with like two cousins and a brother. I'm right there with you. Actually, that's almost the exact same thing. Yeah, absolutely. Like I know what that's like. So
yeah, so for sure having that just teaches you like, and even when my parents would tell me, I still wouldn't I wouldn't listen, and that shows you like I never cared what anyone had to tell me. I was just, at the end of the day, I was always going to do what I wanted to do. And it was funny because my parents hated that about me. They're like, you're the type, we tell you to do something, you're still going to do what you want to do.
The opposite. Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, that's what got me here. So they can't be mad about it now.
So kind of touching on your parents a little bit. So they're immigrants, like you kind of like said in interviews before.
Yes.
As far as how that goes, did they completely understand like kind of like your dreams and aspirations when it first started coming about? Like, because that's like this whole music thing, especially in the States, in Texas or anywhere in general, to try to explain that to like somebody who grew up in like Mexico, El Salvador, you know, wherever, to be like yo, I'm finna do this music shit and I'm finna do it seriously. Like how was that like initial like kind of like reaction? Like I'm pretty sure it was kind of like mixed, you know.
Yeah, definitely. They weren't very happy about it at first. I mean, obviously it's been a hobby of mine since I was 15. So they knew that I was like liked doing it, but they never took it serious until I got out of high school and I was supposed to go to college, and I ended up deciding not to. And that's when it took a different turn with them. They're like, oh, this was supposed to just be something you did for fun. Now you're trying to like, you know, pursue a whole career out of it. Like it's not that easy. And I knew that. But in my mind, all I can think was, well, I can go to school and completely hate what I'm doing and then be miserable. And then not only that, like I'm going to be in this crazy debt. And it was either that route or I was like, I can do what I want to do and know I'm going to give it my all. And of course, it's still going to cost money. You know, you're still in an investment regardless. But the two, like, you know, one side I do want to do and the other side I don't. So it's just like, I had to choose what made most sense for myself. And, you know, it got to a point where like, it took a couple years. Honestly, it wasn't until like this year that they were more like, supportive. Okay, like you're actually like really doing something, you know. And now I get phone calls from my dad, or he's just like, it's funny because my dad's he just got a phone that wasn't a flip phone like the beginning of last year. So now he has like a touchscreen phone, and he just discovered like social media. So he'd be like, and it's funny because he just Googles my name. He says, I Google your name and then everything pops up. So he clicks on my Twitter and my Instagram.
And does he think it's like the coolest thing ever?
Yeah.
Does he know your Does he know your handle like that? He doesn't type in.
Yeah, Bianca. He types in my name.
Yeah.
So it's funny because he just be like, yeah, I saw that you did this. I don't really be telling them everything I do too much. So he just be like going and seeing like, oh, I saw you did a show, and like there's that many people. Like, yeah, it's crazy because then like it wasn't like I was performing in like warehouses with no AC type shit, you know, like it definitely went from that to like it's completely different now for sure, and they see that now, and that feels good to me because out of anyone, like I never care to prove anyone wrong other than them, because I so badly wanted to show them like I know y'all had a different idea of what success is for me, but like I also have this idea for myself, and to try to like prove to them that it was doable was so hard, but like I finally did, and that feeling was like finally like it feels good, you know. So it's definitely dope, and they like, you know, come out to the shows and stuff, you know, that they really put in that effort, you know. They definitely want to show as much support as they can now, so it means a lot.
Okay. I think if I recall, some of your musical influences that you kind of touched on in other interviews that I've seen is because I think one of the first things that stuck out to me when I started hearing your music was just how much of an R&B sense a lot of your beats that you were, you know, whether you be rapping or kind of like, you know, a mixture, kind of like singing, rapping. And I think you said in one interview that you were really influenced by a lot of like the 90s stuff, like Drew Hill, Jodeci. Yeah. And forgive me, but what were more of the rapper influence, if you could say?
I did say like I kind of like in two different interviews I feel like I said two different rappers. Yeah. But like I was definitely like more into like Lil Wayne, you know, like Zero, SPM, and then I also listened to like 90s hip hop, so I listened to like Big L, Tribe Called Quest, who else? Can't even think. Like Biggie, you know. So I was really big into both sides of it too. So yeah, I have definitely always felt like my main like taste or my main influence was from 90s R&B more than anything.
Yeah. And was there anything outside of music, like whether it be like sports, athletes, actors, entertainers, that kind of like influenced you of like how you approach like your craft, like as far as like constructing songs, the way you go about marketing? Like, were there any outside influences like that?
To be honest, it's funny you asked that. I feel like no one's ever asked me this question. But Puff Daddy, I watched, man, if you ever watch his Don't Stop, Won't Stop documentary, man, like I got so like intrigued by the way he thinks about things. A lot of people probably watching it like, man, this dude's an asshole. But like I saw it kind of like, man, that's why he's so damn successful. Like there's just so much about him and the way he thinks. And I went back and started like really watching interviews from him when he was younger, because I wanted to see like what got him to where he's at now. So I just watched a bunch of Puff videos from when like in his prime, when he was like literally when he was just signed like Biggie and all them, like, and just hearing him talk and like hearing the way he handles situations. And I don't know, I really just I wanted to develop that same mindset. And I just wanted to, you know, learn from him as much as I could. So he's someone that I'm constantly like trying to learn from, and like him back then and him now, you know? So I think Puff for sure.
Oh yeah, that's dope. Yeah, that is true. How you can kind of like watch him and like really like misconstrued it. You like look at it like, oh man, he's just wilding out and every single. But yeah, I get it, because it's like people like him. I think I guess Suge Knight's a little bad example of like everything that happened with him, but at his prime with Death Row and all that, you could definitely see like the machine that he was working and like all the artists that he was turning out, like Pac and Snoop and everybody else. So yeah, no, that's dope.
And so speaking of that, I mean, obviously, no matter how people will look at you, like here in the new future when you blow up, you are not an overnight success. You've been doing this for a long time. So like within those 9 years before you got to Smooth, I'm curious to know, because, you know, that like they've been talking about, you know, I guess sort of, they've been talking against hustle culture for a long time now, but I'm always curious for an artist that like really puts in the work day in and day out. What does a day of rest look like for you, and what does a day of work look like for you, you know, before you got with Smooth? Because, you know, Smooth, I guess at this point, and don't let me put words in your mouth, it's kind of like a motor, you know, like underneath you, and like Lato is like, hey, you got to do this.
That's
you know,
exactly what you
exactly, which is a great thing to have. So I'm just so curious, like, how you were motivated on days you really felt like working, and how you rested on days that you really felt like resting, on as someone that really had to do it all basically on her own up until that point.
Well, to be honest, it was very difficult because I was a waitress for 6 years, and I did work with my family, and it did get to a point where I was definitely prioritizing working more than I was like the music stuff. And that definitely got kind of like hard to balance. And I was also, like you said, I was doing everything by myself. Like meeting Smoothie's definitely taken so much off of my hands. But back then I literally did it all. Like I did my own cover art, I did my own photo shoots, I did my own music videos, I edited my own music videos, I edited my own, literally any type of freestyle video I post, I'd shoot, I edited. I did my own distribution, I recorded my own music, I mixed and mastered all of it. Like I did literally everything from like by myself. And doing that and also working was like the hardest thing to balance. But like a full work day for me, like to be honest, would be I'd go to my regular job, I get off, and then I always had a studio set up of my own. So that was, a plus. Luckily I had that. So I was always able to record anytime I got home. So I'd get off of work, record. A lot of times I would record, let's just say I got off of work at like 5, I'd stay up until like 4. Like, I was just trying to make the most of the time I did have to work on music. And then not only that, like, let's just say I had to work the next day and I wanted to shoot a music video. I would work after work. I would shoot a music video. I had to go to Dallas for any reason. There'd been times I would work double shift, leave at 9:00 at night to Dallas. I was constantly just like, I never let the fact that I was working my normal job, like really like stop me from getting anything else done. Cause at the end of the day, like I really enjoyed doing it. I didn't care how tired I would be afterwards. And my rest days, I feel like I didn't have rest days, to be honest. I think my rest days were like me just making time to do other things with other people. That was just me hanging out with my friends or my family and stuff like that. But there was very few rest days. So yeah. And now it's just like there's no rest days, it seems like.
Yeah, but you feel like there's a bigger payoff, like with with every day of work you put in. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so definitely I really think it was all worth it. And I feel like I had to experience all that in order to appreciate everything that's happening now, for sure. So this is it all happened how I needed it to happen.
So do you have what are you currently working on as far as like just the next few projects, singles, whatever it may be? I mean, I know sometimes it's kind of hard to talk about it because you want to keep things under wraps, but are there any up and coming like features or like people getting on your stuff or you're getting on other people's stuff?
Yeah, I actually got a song dropping October 1st featuring GT Garza. I'm really excited about that one. After him, I do have a bunch of other singles. Just kind of like we're still kind of like trying to sort out which one we want to drop next. If we want to drop another feature, if we want to just drop a song with just me all the way through, because I do have a bunch, still with just without features. But after that, we do want to focus on an EP or an album, whatever it may be, whether it's just me without any features, because I feel like I've given people as many features. Yeah. So yeah, it's really the main focus. Just knock out the features I already have done, put them out, and then after that, definitely give everyone a project. So, but yeah, that's the plan as of now.
Okay.
Gotcha. And I was actually I was in the gym this morning, not a humble brag, and I was listening to your album Midnight Lane, and I have to tell you, I absolutely love it. And I know what my favorite track is, but I want to know what your favorite track was to work on out of all of them, because it's a fairly short album. I think it's only about 26 minutes, but like it from beginning to end, it was so smooth for me. It was such an easy listen, and I'm just really curious to know.
That means a lot, by the way. I think that album means a lot to me just because like the period I wrote it in, But my favorite song on there to work on was A Letter to Susie. That one
was my favorite track. That was my favorite track. Yeah.
That's crazy. I feel like that was like a lot of people's least favorite, but that one is because that was the only song on there that I had recorded outside of the studio. I had a really bad day that day. And I came back from Dallas and I came back to my house and I was like, I just remember it being super quiet. And I had a moment where I just broke down and I was like, man, I need to figure out how to like get this out in a better way. So I like remember just recording, and it's funny because in the beginning I like talked briefly, and I was actually like crying when I said that, and only some people had like pointed it out, and I ended up just like, a lot of it was a freestyle that I ended up kind of like picking out, you know, and re-editing or whatever. But that song was probably like the most like I've ever really like just poured everything out. And I don't know, I listen back to it sometimes and I'm just like, and it trips me out to think how I felt in that moment when I first like wrote it. So I think that's why out of all the songs, that one's the one that always takes me back to a moment where I felt really weak. And I'm like, damn, like, I'm glad I was able to come out of that. And now I can only listen back and be like, I'm glad I don't feel that way anymore.
Yeah.
I think that's why I like it.
I love that. And I think that's also partially why I was drawn to it, is because it held so much emotion and I feel like I could sense it in the track. So yeah, no, definitely. Another thing that I was curious about, and I guess I really don't know how to form this question, but we had interviewed Smooth a couple of weeks back, right? And he was going on and on about how like proud he was of you and how like excited he is for you about all the stuff coming up and stuff. And he also mentioned about you know how you grew up, you know, overweight and stuff like that, you know. And first of all, I gotta tell you, I relate. Okay, I went through that journey too. And he's always saying and he said, he's like, I wish she would put more stuff out there as far as like her story, you know, not just, you know, of being a rapper and, you know, being a Latina, you know, all of that stuff, you know, amazing. But also like, because I mean, I tell people all the time is that we are all not all one things. We're like fucking kaleidoscopes, you know, like so many different like edges and like pieces to our story. And so I guess it's like, how do you feel that how you grew up like impacted your journey as far as that goes?
I feel like it impacted it a lot, to be honest. And I think it's not that I don't choose to speak about it. I think it's just a part of my life that I almost like forget about, just because it was like, and it was a long period of time too. You know, I was a chubby kid from like since I was like maybe 7 years old all the way till I was like, honestly, I want to say like 19, 18. And that like, and I was in sports for a long time of like, you know, since I was a kid, but, you know, I definitely was that type of kid that whenever I was feeling really low, all I do would eat.
Emotional eating, bruh. Oh my God. Same. Those bag of Doritos just call your name. Yeah.
No. And it didn't help that my family, you know, like my uncle owns a Mexican restaurant. It's the one I actually worked at. And, you know, we got free Mexican food. Like it was inevitable at that point. So, but it definitely did take a toll on me as a kid. You know, I was bullied a lot because of it. You know, kids did make their remarks. And it definitely like, and then me not knowing about my sexuality early on too, like it also confused me a little bit because I didn't come out until I was 21. So for a long time, I thought, you know, that I was straight. So I always like, that took a toll on me on the sense that I didn't really feel wanted at the time. And that also taught me how to like really give that love to myself more than anything.
Oh, girl, so I think dropping bars today. Oh my God.
So yeah, definitely just, man, that taught me so much. Like I went such a long time as a kid wanting to receive like that type of love and or like wanting to just feel wanted the way I was seeing other people around me. But as an adult, I'm glad I didn't get that because I see what it did to people who did get it. Now they can't live without it. And I'm at a point where I'm like, I can give that love to myself and I'm good, you know, like not, you know, I really feel like it's important for people to get a chance to really be alone and to like understand themselves, because you can't really like give good, healthy love to somebody unless you can give that to yourself first. So that's something I learned from being an overweight kid for so long, was like, at the end of the day, if no one's going to give you that love, you got to give it to yourself.
Yeah. And that's why I'm single, Mexicano. Yeah. Absolutely.
No comment.
Whatever. But no, we love that.
So just to kind of like round out the interview and just kind of like end it like on a very just like random note, do you have a favorite just cartoon? By any chance?
Specifically, do you have a favorite SpongeBob episode? That's what I really wanted to ask you.
SpongeBob
To
episode
be
or
honest,
just
I wasn't
cartoon?
a fan of SpongeBob as much.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Like, I can't really think, but I can tell you my favorite cartoon. Well, I never. This is tough now that I think about it. I want to say it was Scooby-Doo, but I was always more into like cartoon movies because, like, but my favorite all-time like movie I can watch over and over again. I had that bitch downloaded on my phone. It's gonna even sound really funny, but it's Monster House. I don't know if y'all ever
Monster
seen
House?
it.
Really?
My little sister loves that.
That's my
movie.
shit.
Really?
I don't know why. I've always loved
That's
that
really
movie.
obscure. That's obscure as shit.
That's
I love
a random one. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's my shit. I don't know what it is about it. I've always liked it. And anytime my nephews are like, "You trying to watch this?" Like, what you know about that? Hey, that's my shit.
Watch Monster House again. That's crazy. No, that's something I wouldn't really expect, especially to have it on your phone, have that full movie on your phone.
Yeah,
that's pretty...
I bought that on the Apple Movies. I think I was like on a flight one time. I was about to go. I was like, man, I need to just download a movie on my phone that I'll be okay watching. And that was the first one that came to mind.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So you have I think you have a show coming up at in Hamilton Theater. I think September 28th.
Yeah, it's my first headlining show. Shout out to Aero Life Shows for putting this one together. So I'm gonna be headlining along with some really dope opening acts. It's probably gonna be I'd like to say one of the shows that I really feel like I'm gonna have the freedom to like really give my all in, because this is my first headlining show, so I get to perform longer and kind of take more control on what I want to do with the stage. So I'm really excited. So yeah, September 28th, we're going to be in Haltom City at the Haltom Theater.
Awesome. Well, I think that about rounds us out. This was XbValentine, a local rapper here from Fort Worth, going to do big things. Very, very excited. And yeah.
But yeah, thank y'all for having me. It means a lot. It was an honor to be on y'all's show. So thank y'all.
No, I appreciate you. Thank you. We're back. Hopefully you enjoy that interview. Yeah. All that. Hopefully you enjoy that interview with XbValentine. Really dope. Really great person. Please check out her music. Like she said in the interview, she will be headlining her own show, Haltom Theater in Haltom City, September 28th. So, moving on to our first topic. So we're going to do a little bit different, just because, trying to keep things short, still, give you that ILS content. So, First topic we wanna talk about is Hispanics and podcasts. So we're gonna get a little bit meta here. What, Vero?
Nothing. This was your segment idea. I'm rolling with it. I'm being a good team sport.
No. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about like how many people do you think? How many Hispanics do you know like avidly listen to podcasts?
Actually,
avidly. Yeah, avid listeners.
To be honest with you, like the only Hispanics that I know that I regularly hang out with outside of my family would be probably you, Mexicano, but that just might be because I'm antisocial.
Possibly.
Yeah.
That could be a thing.
But I will tell you that it's kind of ironic that you chose this topic of all things, because I was literally having a conversation with my brother this weekend when I went home, and he said he looked up at me and he said, it's like, something, this is my imitation of my brother. He's like, something I've gotten into, that I never thought I'd get into. And I'm like, what, bestie? And he says, I think podcasts are pretty cool. And I say this because like my brother, if you know him, he is probably the machoest, most alpha male country western Mexican cowboy you will ever meet in your life. So up until now, he always thought that podcasts were actually pretty lame, and I don't know if that's his cowboy side or his Mexican boy side. Who's to say?
Well, I don't know. It's very interesting, because I was actually reading an article. Let me bring it up right quick. So one stat that I found very interesting was that, where is it at? So 58% of U.S. Latino monthly podcast listeners are actually men. And it actually like that kind of like hit like a core with me, because I'm like, I always assumed that like podcasts in general, I always felt more women listen to them than anything else.
I don't know. It depends on the podcast that you're talking about, though. Like, is it true crime? Is it a hip hop podcast? Is it
just in a very general
self-help?
sense? This is just a very general sense, obviously.
But honestly, like that stat isn't even like super one way or the other. It's only 58%.
Yeah, but then 48% are aged 18 to 34.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Sounds about
35%,
right.
and then 35% are Spanish language dominant. So, and a podcast that's specifically in Spanish.
See, now that is surprising. How many Spanish language podcasts do you follow, Mexicano, as a Mexican man?
Like specifically in Spanish?
Yes.
Are they talking Spanish? None.
Really?
Yeah. No, I don't listen to any podcast where they specifically just speak Spanish the whole time.
I have like 2.
But here it actually says 33% of U.S. Latinos said that they even listen to a podcast mostly in Spanish, up from 24% in 2020.
You know what that means? It's an open market.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about dabbling in a
in
possible
more Spanglish,
in a Spanish only episode, maybe.
Yeah.
We talked about that.
Yeah.
But
stay tuned.
I kind of want to just to kind of like not really wrap up, but just kind of get into like another talking point. When did you first start listening? Like, what year was it kind of like when you started like becoming like an avid listener? Because I had always known about podcasts to an extent, probably as early as like maybe 2008 or 9. And I think the first podcast I ever heard of was Night Vale.
2008 or 9? Oh, yeah, I forget. You're a geezer.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise.
You too. What are you talking about?
No, I mean in the sense of like, you know, things like, in the sense of the internet.
What? I don't know. Maybe. But Night Vale. That was the first one I ever heard of. And that was like 8 or 9, 9 or 10. 2009, 2010. That's probably the first time I ever heard about like podcasts and what they were and like what people were doing with them. And like at first I didn't really understand the medium. I was just like, so it's radio? This is it was like I was trying to relate it back to things that were already pretty mainstream and available. I'm just
I mean, I was always really passionate about radio and audio since I was like 13, 12 years old, but I didn't actually know what the fuck a podcast was. Sorry, for YouTube, what the mess a podcast was, until like maybe 2015, 2016. It's funny because actually a friend of mine from the Navy, he introduced me and his brother to actually it was Brilliant Idiots, you know, with Charlemagne and Schultz and all of them. He's like, man, you have to start listening to these things called podcasts and like Gary Vee and all of that, you know. But that was my first kind of introduction to it. And then I remember seeing you and Isaiah like start one up in college right around that same time.
Yeah.
And I just felt like it was like the universe's way of saying, it's like, hey, audio is the way to go. Like, you know.
Yeah.
And now I feel like everybody and their ma has at least one podcast that they listen to, Mexican or not.
Yeah. And I think that was around the same time I really started diving deep, was around 14, 15 was the first time I ever like realized, oh, this is like something that's like really blowing up and like catching on fire. Essentially, like people are like every single day, every single week, these things are springing out of the ground. Like, you know, this person has a podcast, this celebrity has a podcast, and that's where like it kind of like
and
really.
Now, do you really think that like now having a podcast is the equivalent to like what having your own YouTube channel was in like 2012? I feel like it's getting there.
Yeah, somewhat. I feel like it's almost like the whole. I don't want to relate it to like a rapper, but almost in a sense of like everybody the rapper because the rapper thing really took off in like the Dat Piff era, in my opinion, like 2009, 2010. So with that, when you were so readily accessible to put your music on the internet.
SoundCloud rapper.
Yeah, even before SoundCloud. Like I said, this is 2009, 2010. This is Dat Piff era. This is live mixtapes. I feel like that's where it feels like now, where it's like every single week you get on Dat Piff, every single week you get on live mixtape, you're gonna see this new artist that you never heard of, but they're promoting the hell out of him because they probably paid their way to get on the front page. But because podcasts are a little bit more, the entry level is not as high, I guess, as far as like promotion stuff like that. And there's not really, I don't know, podcasts are weird because it's not like so much like gatekeepers, like trying to keep you out, but it is saturated in the sense where it is very hard to rise to the top.
I don't know. All I know is that at the end of the day, my mom still doesn't listen to podcasts. So there's that. And I'm sure that if I, like what we were talking about with XB, you know, as far as, you know, how she had to tell her parents that she wanted to be a rapper and them trying to understand that. If I try to tell my Mami Caro right now, my Papa Ned, that I do podcasts, they just wouldn't know what to say.
I mean, yeah, you've heard me tell you how I explain like podcasts to my mom. And like literally all I said was like, oh, I record things and we talk about certain things and we upload it, and just think of it like radio. That's the easiest way I explain it to her. I'm like, just think of it like radio.
What is she? How does she respond to that?
She just usually like, oh, okay.
What did he say?
Just like she's like, oh, just don't be talking about bad stuff.
Yeah.
That's usually all
no
it is.
maldiciones, mijo.
Yeah, that's usually all it is. Just don't be talking about like bad or nasty stuff. And I'm like, all right, cool. So Hispanic listenings to podcasts are still up on the rise, and I don't know, it's gonna get to a point where everybody is gonna know about
who we
podcasts.
Wow.
Maybe, hopefully, hopefully if the trends keep going up, people will definitely start tuning into us eventually, and yeah, who knows, we'll probably be bigger, hopefully, than we already are.
Yeah. What was your next topic, Mexicano?
So my next topic is talking about the relationship that Hispanics have with our favorite little bitty critters, whether that be a gato, a perro, an iguana, un perique.
What Mexican in the world do you know that has an iguana that hasn't fried it up and eaten it?
There's a lot of iguanas. There's a lot of iguanas in Mexico. I'm pretty sure there's one that's kept it as a pet.
No. I'm pretty sure they're all taquitos by now, but whatever.
No, I've eaten iguanas, so I can say what they taste like. Chicken, by the way. But I'm pretty sure there's somebody out there with like a little bitty salamander. Just something out there,
Anyway, this is a segment about Mexican people and their pets.
Yes. So I kind of want to know, like, has the relationship between pets and Mexican Hispanic people, just to be more general, Latinos, has it always struck you as like very like weird in the sense that like it's always been kind of like, because I know obviously there's like people who love their pets, but there's always been like this almost like cutoff point where it's like, you as an animal are not getting past this threshold kind of thing, and because of who you are, you're not, you hear it all the time,
because you are not human. Yeah,
because you're not human, you're not gonna come inside the house ever. We'll keep you chained up probably for most of the day, and if you run away, that's whatever kind of thing, like we're not gonna go look for you. And some of it sounds bad on the surface level, obviously.
Some of it is very cold and detached view of like what it's like to have a mascota in your, outside of your house, let alone like actually inside the house. Like some Hispanics that have an animal inside the house is like one of the grossest things that you can do. I have family members that are like that. When I told because like, all kids in the world, they all want like a puppy or whatever growing up, right? And so you sit there and you beg your parents for one, and if by the off chance like they say yes, that dog is gonna stay outside, and you have all these daydreams of like from all these like white sitcoms that you've seen on TV shows where you have Comet from Full House running around inside the house getting into shenanigans, and you're just sighing there like, I wish I could have an animal in the house too.
A beautiful golden retriever.
I'm telling you, I used to fantasize about that shit when I was in bed when I was 8 years old. I'm like, I would have loved like a little dog inside the house, but why would we ever keep a mugroso around? So
and it's interesting because like you see like the TV shows, right? Like the fantasy is where like, oh, we're gonna go to the shelter, we're gonna find the perfect pet for you. When the majority of times, especially with Hispanic people, it's literally like, oh, look at that dog on the street. Get it.
Yeah.
Put it in the backyard.
Yeah, pretty much.
Here, like, Mom, like, do we have dog food? No, why would we have dog food? Here, just give it this chicken bone.
Yeah, I was going to say bologna. Remember? Bologna or hard-boiled eggs.
That or, like, just bones that you have in the trash. Like, here, give it this chicken bone. And then here, give it this, feed it water.
We gave those animals a tough life. And nobody ever, now, I do feel like nowadays, in our more awakened culture of sorts, I do feel like even the Hispanic community is a little more softer and frou-frou and holistic.
For the better.
Well, yeah, for the better. Yeah, absolutely. Like the way that we did keep like, I remember plenty of like doggos, unfortunately, being chained to like trees and like a doghouse and like a tin of water, and like that's all that they had in my backyard for like my grandparents' yard for the longest time. And that's not okay, but that's just like our old school ways of like doing things. And again, just like a lot of other old school ways that us Mexicanos or us Hispanics have done things in the past, that doesn't necessarily mean it's right. So like you said, it's for the better.
Bro, like This is gonna be my last point, and then we can move on to the last segment. I had this friend. I'm not gonna say who they are, where they lived. If they ever listen to this, hopefully not. But I helped them. Their dog passed away, right? And it was sad.
Do I know this friend?
No, you don't.
Oh, okay.
Their dog passed away. It was a female dog, and when the dog was dead, you could see like this weird, like yellow liquid coming from his mouth.
Eating, listening to this, Mexicano.
You don't know that. Quit making assumptions.
Oh my! I would cry.
Right?
Anyway.
And instead of giving this dog a proper burial, we literally put this dog in a giant hefty bag and threw it inside the trash can.
In Living Spanglish does not promote the improper burying of animals.
I was like 11 or 12, by the way.
Completely.
If my brothers are listening to this, you know probably who and what I'm talking about. Because I think one of them was there for sure when we did this. But it was horrible it was horrible then, and when I think about it now, I'm like mortified. I'm like, Jesus Christ, what were we doing?
Opinions are of Ricardo Mexicano.
This ain't no opinions. These are facts. This stuff happened. We threw a dog in the trash can. It was dead, of course, but still, like, we could have buried the dog.
Yeah, I guess.
So, Hispanic people, I'm glad y'all are treating your pets a lot better than...
We love to see it, bruh.
Yeah, then I never treated my dog...
Frankie loves to see
well,
it.
I'm not going to say I never treated my dog bad. I did some things that I probably shouldn't have. And how our parents also treated the dog, especially bad. I can only imagine, Jesus. But, we're doing good. We're doing right by our mascotas, doing right by our pets. So, let's keep it up. It's a good trend upward to happy living.
Yeah.
And Vero, do you want to cap it off?
Okay, all right. Our last segment for today is going to be Good Lookin Out. You know it, you love it. This is where we go ahead and we tell you what we have been into lately as far as music, movies, TV shows, the like. So this week, I actually fell into this show kind of sort of by accident. I was doing some work on the computer and I just sort of needed background noise. And, as you do, sometimes when Netflix has that new feature, I don't know if anybody knows about it. It's like on the on the left hand side they have like this like squiggly line and it says play something. So it literally, if you click on that, it literally just chooses something, I guess based off of the Netflix's algo that it would assume that you like, right? So I just pressed that for it to be on the background, and the show that came on was a show by the name of Sex Education. So this is a TV series that I believe premiered in 2019, and it is a British teen comedy drama created by Laurie Nunn. So basically it just centers around this boy named Otis Milburn, and he goes to middle school. He's super insecure, and he is insecure about the fact that he cannot pleasure himself, so to speak, in the privacy of his own home. And to make it all the more awkward is that his mom also happens to be a sex therapist. Sex is not a bad word on YouTube, is it?
No, okay.
So his mom happens to be a sex therapist. So they have a very interesting relationship where she is like abrasively open, not only about her sex life, but also about, like communication, about like his budding years with, exploring his sexuality and all of this, that, and the other. And of course you have storylines with basically he comes in contact with like the cool girl from school, and they decide to open up a sex therapy of sorts with for their fellow students who are having sex problems of their own, with their relationships and things like that. And not only, the reason that I ended up loving the show is not only is it smart and super witty, and yes, to me, as an almost 30-year-old, it can be weird to see people, even actors that portray teenagers, like having sex and being naked. Like, it just like throws me off now. And I don't know if that makes me like 80 years old or whatever. But I feel it's incredibly insightful, and it's very, very emotionally intelligent. And like, I feel like there were episodes where both I laughed and it made me think a whole lot. And one of the things that I really love the most, I would have to say, is definitely Otis's relationship to his mom, and how important these talks are, and how important it is for things to be normalized. Because I know, I mean, for myself, I was very, very late bloomer when it comes to not just sex, but just like everything in the knowledge of sex and in the realm of sex and everything growing up. So it's good for me to see that, you know, of course, if you just said that, like, the teenagers of age or whatever, that they're able to watch shows like this and know that sex is a normal thing, and talking about things around sex, like STDs and the emotional things that come with it and all of that is all very, very, are all conversations to be had. So, I mean, all that serious, they package all that seriousness in a bunch of British hilarity. So I love it. I adore it. I give it a solid 8 out of 10 Veronica stars. Netflix.
Yeah, I did like some of the little clips, and well, not clips, but just some parts of the episode.
Yeah, you were walking past the TV.
Yeah. No, I was sitting down here at some point watching it.
Oh.
Yeah, it seemed pretty entertaining. So I'll definitely maybe catch it when you have it on again and watch it then. But yeah, it does look like a really promising show. So for me, I want to touch on a show that I've had on my watch list for a while now. But it wasn't until the Emmys, which was this past Sunday, premiered, and they touched on this show, and they actually ended up winning 7 awards. And I'm not someone who usually looks for validation in TV shows or music for the most part.
Yeah, you're obnoxiously hipster.
But this one got a lot of awards. I'm like, all right, I've had it on my radar for a while. I had it on my watch list. I know I want to watch it. And when I kind of saw the awards it won, I'm like, okay, I guess I'll finally watch it. And I decided to sit down today and watch it. And the show was Ted Lasso. And I've had like coworkers and various people tell me about the show.
Sounds so familiar.
Yeah, I was literally just watching it when you got home earlier today. Yeah. It's what you were hearing blare over the speaker. So I decided to finally sit down, watch it. Concept hilarious. A football coach who recently won a championship for the college team that he was coaching gets hired to coach a soccer team over in England, and just that basic premise already like just made me laugh. But just kind of like the quick witty humor that oh God, why am I drawing a blank right now on the actor? Jason. I want to say Jason Statham, but I'm like, of course it's not Jason Statham. That's freaking the transporter. Jason Sudeikis. The humor, the super country southern accent that he brings to his character Ted Lasso, is amazing. And I can only imagine. I literally just watched the pilot, and I can only imagine the how the storyline's gonna develop from here on out. So super brief, I know, but I just saw the first episode and I fell in love with it. So I can't wait to keep watching it. I know season 2 just premiered like maybe a couple months ago, and I think they're still airing the episode. So, and I think season 1 only has like 9 episodes, so you can get through them pretty quick. I know I will. So
how many Ricardo stars is
just on the pilot, like 8.5.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that was our Good Looking Out, mi gente, and that also wraps up what, episode 3?
Yep. No, 2.
Episode 2 of the In Living Spanglish podcast. If you stuck with this, with us for this long, just know we love ya, and we out.
Yep.
My hope is that you see how Spanglish has closed the gap and formed a synergistic approach for communication. Thank you.